It's really getting ridiculous lately when I go on YouTube, and after every close fight, you hear the word robbery. And then there's a lot of scorecard shaming too on YouTube for a lot of people who have the fight a certain way. And in their own seems to be arrogance, they come off as being know-it-alls, and they question, how can you be so bold as to question my infinite scorecard? How can you actually watch a fight and see something entirely different than I see? How dare you disagree with me and not think exactly like me and be a sheep like I want you to be? Well, this is the thing. These people, they want to scorecard shame, and they want to talk down to people who don't agree with them and insult people who don't agree with them, saying that, you know what, you must not know how to score a fight. You must not understand the sport of boxing. But then they say things like, well, look at the guy's face. Look at the CompuBox numbers. This guy landed the more damaging blows. He landed the harder punches. And that's all well and good, but in some of those instances where you see a guy land punches and another guy's landed punches and no one's really getting staggered, or no one seems to be getting knocked backward or going down or almost going down. So how do you determine whose punch is harder than the other guy's punch if you're not actually taking the punch yourself? So that in itself is very subjective, and basically it's within the eye of the beholder to determine that. And then you hear things like, oh, well, you have to take it from the champion. Where does it say in the scoring criteria that you have to take it from the champion? It's basically clean, effective punching, effective aggressiveness, defense, and ring generalship. That's the criteria. Nowhere in that criteria does it say you have to take it from the champion. Nowhere in that criteria does it say that the champion has this built-in scoring advantage or this built-in point spread advantage before the fight even starts, going into the rounds. So I don't know where people come up with that one, but that seems to be an old adage in the sport. And then you hear, well, look at the punch stat numbers. So basically, the scoring system that was being so heavily criticized in the amateurs, the system of just counting punches and the guy who lands the most punches wins the fight. So many people criticize that, but now all of a sudden they want to adopt that into professional boxing. Nowhere does it say in the scoring criteria the guy who lands the most punches wins the fight. And keep in mind, CompuBox basically is two people counting punches. One guy's counting one fighter's punches, another guy's counting another guy's punches. So a judge isn't going to sit there with a clicker himself and count punches and use that as a way of scoring the fight. That's not what judges are supposed to do, and that's not what judges do, I would suspect. I don't think they would have the time to sit there with a clicker and do that. So that should not be part of the criteria either. But people, by the way people talk and listen to some of these people, it's like they wait for the fight to be over, and then they want to get the CompuBox numbers, and then they want to see who landed the most punches, and automatically that guy won the fight. Because look at the CompuBox numbers. Okay, great. So that's not how you score professional boxing. Okay? It's not supposed to be that way. And another thing you hear is, well, look at the facial damage. Again, some guys bruise easier than others. Some guys have a lot of scar tissue, and not only that, you could still land a big shot on somebody. It only takes one good shot to break someone's nose. It only takes one good shot to swell someone's eye up. It only takes one good shot to break someone's jaw. But amidst all of that, if you're getting outboxed thoroughly in a round and you land one big shot, you swell someone's eye up, and he looks like, a gargoyle, that doesn't mean you win the round based on facial damage. It's not Mortal Kombat. You know, you don't get fatality points, I should say, for landing shots on your opponent. And also, well, this guy finished stronger. He won the championship rounds. Okay, so if he wins the championship rounds, if he wins, 10, 11, and 12, but he loses all the other rounds in the fight, so just because he won the championship rounds, we're supposed to not score or not add in the rounds he lost earlier in the fight. So it's a 10-point must system that you're supposed to use, and you're supposed to use the scoring criteria of clean, effective punching, effective aggressiveness, defense, and ring generalship. That's how you score a fight. So none of these other things you hear people say, CompuBox, facial damage, body language, none of this stuff is part of the criteria of scoring a fight. So it's ridiculous to hear these things from people who are supposed to be so much smarter than everyone else, and whose scorecards are supposed to be so much better and have so much more validity than everyone else's. But yet, they're saying things that really aren't part or aren't part of the criteria to score in a boxing match. And you have to score rounds. You don't look at the fight as just one big round. You have to score each individual round. And I've said this 1,000 times, and I'm sounding like a broken record. One guy can win 8 rounds and just barely win those 8 rounds, and lose 4 rounds big. And to the layman, to the boxing casual fan, the guy who won those 4 rounds big, who doesn't really understand the 10-point must system, he basically thinks the guy that really won those 4 rounds big and almost knocked the guy out in those rounds, he thinks based off of that guy should just win the fight, and not take into account that each round is scored individually, whether you win it big or whether you win it small. If you win a round, you win a round. So you just add up the points at the end of the fight, and that determines who wins the fight. So none of this other stuff, you have to win the championship rounds. Well, this guy was hurt more. This guy had more facial damage. This guy landed more punches. Because take into account, another thing about CompuBox is, a power punch is any punch landed other than a jab. So if the fighter has a Larry Holmes type jab, and can basically knock a guy down with a jab, right? And he lands those types of jabs in a fight, and then maybe his opponent's landing right hands, but he's landing like grazing right hands, punches that are just going like that, but they're still connecting, and they're not having a whole hell of a lot of damage. Those grazing punches may not be as hard as that jab, but they're considered a power punch. So the word power punch doesn't mean it's a harder punch. It just means it's a punch thrown that's other than a jab. So that's another misconception out there. Well, this guy landed more power shots. So does it mean that all the power shots that he landed really were powerful blows? So, a lot of you guys sitting there criticizing everybody else, basically saying that there's no such thing as a close fight that can go either way, that every time there's a close fight, there's a robbery. I think you really need to sit down, do some research, and understand how the 10-point must system works, number one. And number two, understand that you score each round individually. Whether a guy wins it big or he wins it by a little bit. He wins the round, he wins the round. And you add it up at the end of the fight. Doesn't matter who's hurt more, who has more facial damage, who won championship rounds, who's the champion. At the end of the day, it's like any other sport. The guy who has the most points or more points than his opponent at the end, he's the winner. And that's how boxing is, just like any other sport. That's all I can say, man. That's my rant of the day. Love to hear what you guys think, whether you agree or disagree. Habeeb is out. Talk to y'all soon. This was such a topic that's been really egging me lately, really pissing me off lately, that I didn't even want to wait till I got home to make this video. I decided to just make this video spontaneously at the gym. So it is what it is, guys. Just my opinion. And I think I made some valid points. You let me know. Habeeb is out. Peace. And don't forget to check us out every Sunday. Ringside Reporter Podcast, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Always post the number in the description link. So make sure if you want to talk boxing with us, call in. And until next time, Habeeb is out. Talk to y'all soon. Peace. Happy New Year.